growth and industrial transformation. So first starting with Honorable Michael Ochere Bafi, the Deputy Minister for Trade and Industry in Ghana. Thank you. Next we have Adil Chiki, the Director and Head of Corporates at CEMED. Please take a seat. Yes. CEMED and Africa Union and Africa European and European Bank of Reconstruction and Development. Next we'll have Ngone Diop, the Director of West Africa Sub-Regional Office at UNECA. And finally, we'll have our main moderator, co-moderator for the session, Werner Van Zyl, a development economist and expert too. Thank you. And the format for this is we'll start with a 15 to 20-minute presentation. Then after that, we'll have a guided discussion. So over to you, Werner.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for allowing me this opportunity today to talk to you about this very important topic, one which is particularly close to my heart. I'm deeply honored by all the delegates, all protocol observed. The topic of this panel discussion is economic resilience, green growth and industrial transformation, new paths to SEZ prosperity. Just a short introduction to myself. As introduced, I'm a development economist. I specialize in special economic zones, and I've been working on the African continent for nearly 20 years. Thank you. For the last 2 years, I've been working with Buro Happold, which is an international engineering company who provides various services for industrial and other infrastructure-related services. Just a highlight of some of the projects that we are currently working on. Some of these you may recognize. They've become global icons in their own right around the world. But key to all these projects is a deep commitment to green economy and sustainability. I'm here today representing our cities unit, and where we specialize in the green dimensions of SEZ planning and to make sure that they reach their sustainable development objectives. So the key question I want to ask you today, and we're going to pose this to our panelists as well, is should all industrial parks be eco-industrial parks? It's a question that is not always easy to answer. There are many dimensions to this question. So while we're doing the presentation, I would like each of you to think about this, and hopefully we can engage with the panel to see what potential answers or avenues might be. The concept of eco-industrial parks and circular economy in particular has been gaining significant momentum around the world over the last 2 decades. It started in 2002, there was a publication by William McDowell and Michael Bernard, with their publication Cradle to Cradle, Remaking the Way We Make. But central to their book and subsequent thinking on this topic is the idea that waste should not be minimized. It should be completely eliminated. How can we design industrial parks in such a way that we really close off all production processes in such a way that we completely eliminate waste? Now, obviously, that is a perfect ideal that we strive to. It is not something which is always technically achievable, but that is certainly the principle behind circular economy and an eco-industrial park and what we mean by these concepts. There have been many publications on the topic, and to summarize, I have cited the Resolve framework, which is presented on the slide, which tells us that eco-industrial parks is about regeneration, it's about sharing, optimization, loops, virtualizing, and exchange. So these best practices are espoused by ASASO, UNIDO, the UNDP, UNCTDA, the African Development Bank, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, the World Bank, as well as other multilateral development banks. And then also the Ellen MacArthur Foundation has made substantial contributions to our knowledge and understanding of circular economies, and they have complemented the key performance indicators that is used by the United Nations as well as the World Bank to ensure desired outcomes. So after a study of all these frameworks, there's a few common focal points that we can take away, which includes municipal utilities and waste management, energy and water efficiency, social and environmental standards, as well as government policies. And these points we're going to explore a little bit further in our panel discussion. Where does Africa and Nigeria currently stand on these issues? What have we done over the past 30 years, and what is different over the next 30 years? I think that is a key question. What will we do different over the next 30 years? And what is our new understanding, our evolved understanding of eco-industrial parks, which embraces the concept of zero waste or zero waste minimization? Some of the points that we need to think about when we discuss eco-industrial parks is how do they contribute to livability? How do they contribute to resilience? How do they contribute to stability? And then how do they contribute to the circular economy? It is also important to understand that these parks form part of a larger urban framework. So while we aspire to these goals at a SEZ level, it becomes empirical to understand that they form part of a larger urban metabolism and urban system, which must also aspire to these same ideals. And what solutions can an SEZ provide to its larger urban or city environment to meet its overall green and sustainability objectives? So in transitioning to a green growth and economic resilience and thinking about this differently and our approaches over the next 30 years, I've highlighted a few points around the need for a strong vision, passion and determination, collaboration of public and private, around strategy, identification of unique sustainability points, on timing, identity, and monitoring and evaluation. So I'm just going to quickly touch on these. The basis for a strong vision. Industrial zones, by their nature, requires very, very strong and good collaboration. That need becomes even more so for eco-industrial parks, where you have a lot of other dimensions which can be difficult to reach consensus about. It's not only between government and the park, but also between the tenants in the park, who may very well perceive each other through a lens of competition. So the facilitator's role is then really to bring everyone in the park, the tenants especially, to the party, so that they can understand the common objectives of cooperation and sharing, to make sure that the park as a whole reach its objectives for competitive and sustainable and green development outcomes. A creative way of doing this that was successfully applied by Buro Happold was to come up with a game which we call a game of zones, where we bring all the stakeholders together, and in a very nice, creative way, we address all the pertinent issues that stakeholders must engage with. Passion and determination. We've heard a lot of good information this morning about SEZs and their objectives and what Africa wants to achieve with them. But from experience, I can share with you that it is not an easy thing to do. It really requires very, 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 very sustainable passion and determination over a long term by all role players. And this diagram is just a high-level illustration of the phases that one would typically go through in developing a new SEZ product. Our company, Buro Happold, was involved extensively in India to develop eco-industrial parks, and in this specific program called the Association of Lady Entrepreneurs, we specifically engaged with women and other vulnerable groups to bring them in as key participants into the development of eco-industrial parks. Women played a key role in India as well as here in Africa in eco-park value chains, and what they bring and their participation and their entrepreneurial spirit to parks. Collaboration between public and private. At the launch last night, this was also emphasized. Interagency collaboration is of critical importance. It speaks directly to the business model for implementing industrial parks, and when it becomes an eco-industrial parks, these innovative business models and innovative financial models become absolutely critical. And to achieve those with any degree of success, there must be very good interagency agreement. The role players and stakeholders must include representatives and experts from a wide variety of public and private sector institutions. In the in the panel that later this afternoon, we are going to investigate that further into how technology can be commercialized in SEZ and what that implies for the participation of public and private institutions. Creating an enabling environment for collaboration is then of absolute critical importance, and that the correct mechanisms is implemented to facilitate that from the very beginning. So when we talk about industrial parks, specifically through a very strong environmental green development lens, we clearly need to research and understand and engage around industrial space, mobility and logistics, energy transition, digitization, and climate change. And it's those exact same dimensions which the president of the African Development Bank explained this morning, so that we can work towards an integrated, data-based, sustainable industrial zones. We've been involved, we had the privilege to be involved with Volkswagen in Germany, and how they re-engineered themselves to be for green production in their eco-industrial park. And we took them through this entire process up to certification. So transitioning an industrial park, an SEZ, an existing one, to an eco-industrial park it's not an easy thing to do. It is a long, complicated process which involves many of these dimensions that we've talked about. And it also pertains to the question that I've asked in the very beginning of this presentation. Should all industrial parks become eco-industrial parks? And then what does that mean for existing industrial parks in Nigeria and on the rest of the continent? To achieve zero waste, not that one can achieve it, but to work towards zero waste, it is very important to undertake feasibility study and to conduct proper research around the symbiosis of the entities or the industries in the park. So in the past 30 years, this analysis was really focused on the economic competitiveness. In the next 30 years, and the evolution of this approach is now really focused on economic competitiveness, but also in terms of green dimensions. How much waste is this park going to produce? How much energy is it going to produce? Where does the energy come from? Will the activities of one industry have an impact on the waste production, the energy use, the water consumption, etc., in other industries? So it is really about doing very sophisticated modeling and mapping of value chains, industries, and supply chains to ultimately meet sustainable development objectives, i.e. minimizing waste, energy, sustainable energy, efficient water, as well as wastewater management. But really in Africa, what we've seen and working with the World Bank is that material waste generation is a huge challenge, specifically with regards to single-use plastic. So how do you reduce that and how do you deal with that? So I think on this slide, is just making that point again of really optimizing the industrial symbiosis within a park to ensure that it is designed in such a way that the park ultimately creates as little waste as possible, as well as meeting its energy, water, and other utility infrastructure objectives. So how do we achieve that? We optimize industrial symbiosis and we combine that with state-of-the-art engineering solutions. We also have to take a bottom-up approach by working with industrial parks in terms of their design, in terms of their energy efficiency, in terms of green supplies, and in terms of compensation. There's often environmental trade-offs between a park and its larger urban environment, and we need to understand those trade-offs. As I said earlier, there is knock-on effects, a ripple effect throughout regional value chains, and industrial parks are impacted by their larger urban environments and vice versa. So the development of strategy, starting with a vision, clearly setting out the principles for the park. What are the design concepts? What is the key performance indicators? What does this mean for individual industries? Thinking of those industrial mapping and the stakeholder agreements to make sure that the industries in the park cooperate with each other in a meaningful way, and then the implementation and monitoring of the park. Ongoing monitoring is very, very important. In accordance with the theory of change, we want a circular system of monitoring and evaluation which allows us to take corrective action over time. Time? Yes. Okay. No. As I said, it's important to realize that SEZ is not only at one level of scale. We're talking about the local park scale, and that is scaled up to an urban scale. And we need to think about sustainability and green transformation at all these scales and how they impact each other. Okay, which brings us back to our central question: should all industrial parks be eco-industrial parks? So I have a few more questions here, but through you, facilitator, can we open the panel for discussion?
Sounds good. Thank you so much for the presentation. I think that's a good question for us to hand over to each panelist one at a time. So if you have any comments or thoughts on the presentation, you can. This is the moment that you can start. And I'll start with Honorable Befi as the government representative on the panel.
Thank you very much. We want to thank, firstly, we want to thank ISO for creating this very big platform for us to share ideas as players in special economic zones and zones in general. And also, I would like also, on behalf of the good people of Ghana, our president, and to also congratulate Nigeria for celebrating its 30th anniversary. And I guess it's very important. They set the pace for us as a bigger economy for all of us to follow, so that we'll be able to build a very strong economic zones in Africa. But just to, before I even tackle the answer, give my opinion on, I just want to say that whether we believe it or not, now special economic zones have come to stay in Africa. And for me, I believe that Africans must be seen as showing so much interest in developing a special economic zone that will suit our peculiar economy, so that we'll be able to generate a lot of benefit from it. So before we even come to the fact whether it is even good for all special economic zones to be eco-friendly or not, the key point I want to put across is the fact that there is a need for Africans to develop specific tailor-made special economic zones, and policies also should be drafted to suit their economy, so that they'll be able to, generate more benefit. and get more advantages from special economic zones. And whether we like it or not, again, the world is also going green. And it is becoming a phenomenon that everybody must walk through, whether we like it or not. So when you decide to go green, it means that you are getting more access to foreign direct investment. You are getting more access to companies, anchor industry to set up within your jurisdiction. So I guess for me, I'm looking at one policy, and it should be tailor-made, specific towards the economy you operate within. That's the first point. Two, we should also look at the benefits that can accrue as a result of going either eco or not. But the best is eco, because that is the world we are now. The world is going renewable. The world is going green. So in the area of development of special economic zones, we should be able to think like that. And so policies should be drafted along that line so that they'll be able to gain a lot. That's my initial comment, please.
Thank you. And now we can move over and get the view from Afanda. So Adil? No, Adil.
Okay, thank you. Well, very, very happy to be here, of course. I'm going to take 10 seconds just to situate things a little bit for us. I'm representing the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. I'm Director Private Sector for the North Africa region. We're not present yet in Africa, or at least in Sub-Saharan Africa. We are present in North Africa, Morocco, Egypt, Tunisia. And the reason why, one of the reasons that we're particularly interested about this panel is because we have an expansion strategy towards Sub-Saharan Africa, and we as management are trying to do our utmost to position the bank and to try to get feedback, and more than feedback, a solicitation from countries in Sub-Saharan Africa for us to try to copy and paste the model that we used in North Africa and position it in Sub-Saharan Africa. So with that said, the topic of industrial zones and economic zones, it's something that at least from my perspective, I've been seeing for the past 10 years or so. And when we talk about, eco, not eco, I mean, let's be pragmatic and let's situate things in where they should be. As my friend just mentioned, Africa is still at a point where we need to make sure that economic zones are viable. And so we need to look at it from the viability, sustainability perspective. They need to work. Not all economic zones work. I'm sure all of us have examples of those that have worked and those that haven't. But what I'm trying to say is that it should be looked at from a competitiveness and a cost perspective at the end of the day, and whether it's going to be sustainable or not. So we know what let's say the criteria for sustainability are, and we need to make sure that they are there and that they are respected. And whether eco or not will be just one variable or one parameter amongst others. However, what's very important is we need to position new economic zones or existing ones, as you were mentioning, Werner, to try to take advantage of, let's say, when we're talking about green, if energy, and we know energy consumption is pretty high, especially today. If we can take advantage of the sun, the wind, the hydro, in terms of making the energy consumption in these zones more competitive, then clearly it's a yes, 100%. Also, but let's not forget as well the other aspects of sustainability, such as making sure that we include women, we include the young people, we train them, we give them the necessary know-how, the necessary expertise to make the industrial projects that are present in these economic zones viable, because it's not just about investing and putting together a plant, it's about getting people that are employable and that have the necessary know-how It's also about looking at the other aspects that again impact the cost of the products that will be coming out of these economic zones. So back to the initial question, eco or not eco, it should be if it makes sense, if it makes cost sense at the end of the day, because we're in the position in sub-Saharan Africa whereby we need to first make sure that these economic zones work. They need to make sure that the spillover effect in terms of creating jobs, creating added value jobs, and sorry, one of the things that I wanted to mention as well is not to focus on just your traditional way of doing things or way of investing in industrial zones, and try to think about more innovation, more digitalization, investing in things that will close the gap a little bit between the way of doing things in the past and position ourselves looking forward. Spending a bit on research and development. The major difference between Africa and the industries that are in Africa and what you see elsewhere is just spending on R&D. That's why we're still, even North Africa, it's still on the, let's say, the lower parts of the value chain. I'll say maybe certain countries are have moved a bit forward, but still, R&D is a key component, and I can speak later about some examples that we've done with economic zones in some of our countries of operation. I'll stop there.
Sounds good. Thank you. Over to Ngone Job.
Thank you very much. It's a very short, provocative question, and I think my response would be there are a narrative, positive narrative, and a counter narrative. The first one is actually based on facts and figures that we are in a very kind of geopolitical and geostrategy characterized by three crises, and Africa is facing it very apt. The pandemic we know, but we also know the impact of the Ukraine crisis, war crisis, and climate crisis. But when it comes to climate crisis, all African, and it has been well established that Africa contributes only less than 3% on greenhouse emissions. So the narrative among many, and the belief is that, well, we are impacted very highly by this, the climate change, and we contribute only less to 3%. Paris Declaration and Paris and all those COP, etc., actually agreed to do a kind of not compensation, but support the trend and mega trend in that context, while nothing has come. Normally, the estimation we have been doing as United Nations Economic Commission of Africa and others is that we do need between $20 million and $30 million per year to be able to cope with that. Of course, it does have negative implications, negative externalities, to speak as a real economic term, on even the industrialized part. And we're saying the counter-narrative is saying, the narrative we continue to say, well, we shouldn't be worried about that, climate change, because we're not developing, we're not industrializing, and we are receiving very heavy weight and consequences of what is going on. So if we are to develop and to hasten our development processes, we really need to move forward without, taking care of that. The counter-narrative, and that's the narrative we are actually at the United Nations supporting, is to say, well, let's not follow the same path as the older, the mainstream industrialized policy and megatrend. What we would like to come up with is the tailor-made industrialization, but that is climate smart. Yes, climate smart, but it's not a quick fix. It can be quick wins here and there, but it shouldn't be quick fix. In other things, we're not pushing Africa to say, you have to do it this way and this way, but we are putting a global space and platform and processes through which African country, based on their decision, based on their process and their agenda for change, which has been brought together by the African Free Trade Area, we say we will. And more African countries, more and more, believe that for Africa to be industrialized, for Africa to come up with a sustainable way of job creation, they should actually think of climate smart industrialization process. And for the facts and the stylized facts we had in ECA show us that, for example, for Cote d'Ivoire, our empirical analysis study show us that if Cote d'Ivoire invests in green investment, in green industrialization, it will lead to job creation that actually are 4.3 more time than in a mainstream one. And then in terms of value addition and economic value, it will be 23 times more than in the mainstream or traditional way. So the argument to actually invest in that is there. But what does it take? And I hope you will come to that. What does it take to actually adopt an industrialization that is tailor-made, that is African-informed process, an industrialization that is sustainable, that is inclusive, that will not leave no one behind, as we articulated in Agenda 2030, and indeed in the African Union Agenda 2063. So the two narratives are out there, but it's up to us to bring in our facts and figures, our analytical underpinning to be able to support that process of change that will leave no one behind, but strongly back up by, information, analysis, data, and so on to support that process. But yes and yes.
Thank you. I see people nodding, so the panel is nodding, so I want to give a chance for reactions, starting with Honorable Baffy.
I think, that's what we're saying. Because see, what we have to believe as Africans now is that COVID has shown us a lot of weaknesses in the system. And therefore, he has also opened our business senses to be able to know and understand the fact that the only way to go for Africa to develop or to see total development is through industrialization. So then how do we industrialize? We industrialize by trying to either start from the SME levels or trying to encourage a lot of people to start building businesses from the scratch. So that through the development of businesses, we'll be able to grow and cut down on importation, so that later on we can export more to get more foreign exchange to help make our countries very resilient and stand the test of time. Now, we can also, through this effort, attract very good investment in the area of foreign direct investment. And all these things we're talking about would like to, be located at a particular point. That's how come it is very important and critical for every country to look at the need for a special economic zone, and also to look at how sustainable it is, which is very important, very critical, and not just important. It is important because when the business is not, when the model is not viable and it's not sustainable, it means that later on we are sure it will become a white elephant one day. People may not even be interested in coming to settle there, and so there's a need for us to look at this perspective. From this time at this perspective, to know and see what we want as a country. And that's why I said that if countries start developing policies, or we are now moving away from the old free zones, the old concept of free zone, to now entering into a new version of developing smart zones and new special economic zones. There's the need for us to develop policies that will make industrial parks stand the test of time, that will help grow businesses that situate in industrial parks. And that is why it is not only important for us to just set up industrial park, but for us to set up industrial park that will be viable, that can attract investment, attract very good investment, that can attract very big anchor industries that will serve as growth poles to develop countries. Because without that, companies may just come in, set up, take advantage of very good incentives, make more money, repatriate funds, and leave, and the country will still be stuck. That's not what we want. We want a sustainable business where the host country will benefit fully from that's how come I believe that as much as possible, there's a need for us to look at the sustainability, to go green, go all out, to be sure that we also stop counterfeiting. Counterfeit goods into the system through importation and re-exportation and transshipment. These are things that will bring, a this concept down, and to not cause us to generate more benefit from the special economic zones. But also, for me to make this point, I believe, and I still stand by it, believe that special economic zones has come to stay. Countries must start developing policies that will make our special economic zones very different, viable, sustainable, and also stand the test of time to be able to attract very good businesses into our system, so that our countries may benefit from job creation, can benefit from also taking part in industrial development, and that can cause our economics to be very resilient.
Thank you so much. I know there are some reactions, but I also, we are around 15 minutes before we run out of time. So I wanted to open up for Q&A, and hopefully we'll get to address some of these questions. So if you have a question, please just say your name, organization, and then straight to the question. And hopefully we have a mic or two roving around. Okay, perfect.
While waiting for questions, if you want, I can,
Yes.
I can say a couple of words as well. No, I was going to just react about some things that my friend to my left, Ngoni, has just said. Two words that I like, tailor-made and smart. And just to continue a little bit more on that, and obviously, I'm a banker, so I always look at it from a banking perspective, cost perspective, cost/risk. Yes, tailor-made, because obviously we need to adapt things and models to the requirements and needs of all our different countries. But clearly the market is there in terms of what we can sell and what we can produce. But at the end of the day, we need to make sure that things are produced competitively so that we can compete. Michael just mentioned about trying to stop imports. Well, precisely the only way you can stop it is if you can produce something with the same quality at a competitive cost. And that is once again where I refer to the eco, or to me it's not eco, can you do it in an eco manner, in a green manner, in a more competitive manner? That way, using, again, as I said, thank God, Africa has lots of sunshine, wind, water, you name it. If we can use it to make things, to produce our products so that we need in a more competitive manner, then we've won. But we need to make sure that we focus on things that are, one, required, and two, that where the raw materials are present as well. We cannot just try to, industrialize for the sake of industrializing, or try impossible missions of stopping imports with something that we cannot compete with. The second word that Ngoni mentioned is smart. And that, again, leads us to the same thing, which is not to just do things the way we always do, but look at the cost benefits and see where things stand. And an example that I wanted to use is green hydrogen. Green hydrogen is a topic right now, huge topic, huge, unbelievable levels of investments and announcements of investments. Africa, Nigeria can be an extremely good place for setting up infrastructure, setting up zones, setting up huge products for the production of green hydrogen, green ammonia, which can feed different countries, which can feed different sectors, fertilizers. It can be used even as fuel for the airspace, for maritime. Honestly, the limits are unimaginable, and God has given a country like Nigeria all the necessary on top of oil and everything, which actually produces what we will need as well. So let's be innovative, let's be smart.
Okay, a very quick reaction from Ngoni, then we'll take three questions. And also please say who you're directing the question to.
Yeah, no, very, very quickly. And I want to give some very concrete case study based on the concrete things he has given. Yes, to be smart, cost-effective way to actually harness our capacity and our natural resources we are endowed with. I can give you very recently ECA, Afreximbank, and then African Union and so on. we engaged into doing a very empirical study to see to what extent we can have a very cost-effective way to produce battery, for example, an electric vehicle. And we did the comparison, and I'm not going into the details. And you found that Zambia and DRC can actually be the hub. When you compare it with others, we are much lower, and we have the cobalt, the lithium, and all of that in place. So with the demand being 72 billion of electricity from now to 2030, and 43 trillion from now to 2025, we do have an opportunity and building block to harness the cobalt we have and to harness the lithium and so on and so forth in Africa with low price, attracting foreign investment, but also being able to harness and respond to the paradox of the plenty. And then responding to the paradox of the plenty also when we investigate, we show that between 2016 and 2018, 50% of the goods and services that are trained within Africa are manufactured. And we are not even using, half of our possibility and capacity. That brings us to the fore, the ability for the continent to be able to think through and come up with very forward-looking, sustainable, inclusive, and smart industrialization.
Thank you so much. And as we hand over for the Q&A, I would also we have some testimonies coming from SEZs in Ghana and Mozambique. So I would like to invite the speakers to also join us on stage. So we just take 2-3 questions quite quickly, address them at once. So that would be we have Okuye Michael Aaron, the Chief Executive Officer for Ghana Free Zones. And then we also have Frey Adrian, the Chairman for Moz Parks. So a round of applause as they join us. Have the questions come through? Okay, I see one hand there. A second hand there. So, welcome.
On behalf of my company, Inter Mamlaka Destination Limited, in Nigeria, precisely in Akwa Ibom State, also moving in to the economic free zone, I feel I should add this. Already, the free zone has been established and I'm going to stay. But one thing I want to understand, like what's happening in Malaysia. Every free zone in Malaysia, which I know, work with a central bank of their country and the EFCC of their country equivalent. Therefore, bringing in funding for those companies in those particular zones will not be disturbed or distracted by the EFCC or police or whoever their name may be. So I plead with this opportunity to ask our Nigerian government to please discuss about and negotiate about this idea of bringing in the Central Bank Authority and the EFCC officers to be in the zone so that in applying for foreign loans, it will be very important the applicant will pass through them before it goes out to the foreign partner. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we'll get the second question or statement, and then yeah.
Okay, hello, thank you. I'm Mr. Sow. I come from Senegal. I'm the Secretary General for our agency to promote in the economical zone and the industrial park. But for the presentation, I think it's very, very important and congratulations. But I have one question for, I think we are in ASO, we have many experience, each countries, we have many special economical zone. But in Senegal, we have new for the polysi industrial. We have developing 3 economical zones now. But I think it's important to promote for the renewable energy. But I think for the industrial, it is important to make a joint venture. But all the industry have not the same experience. And we have for the sustainable for the economical in each sites, we have a new industry, but we have no experience to develop his product. But in the now digitalization is a solution, but no make do the employment. But our country, for the young boy, like to make a job. But if you promote the digitalization, you have no solution. But what kind of, for your experience, to give a solution to make, or to find a solution for the industry to make many jobs in our countries? Thank you.
Thank you. So that's a question on how new and budding SEZs can be supported in their different goals, even as they're trying to be climate friendly, but dealing with the issue of creating jobs and also the role of digitization. So I'll just hold that one as we get the 2 statements, the SEZ statements. Then we can hand over that question to get the inputs from the 3 panelists.
Am I online? Thank you. Good afternoon. I think it's good afternoon. Well, thanks for the interesting presentations. I'm Adrian from Mozambique. Just blending into the questions, there is no other way than being an eco park. That's not even for us in Mozambique a question of doubt. That's the way to go, and that's the only way to go. When the banker says it has to be sustainable, of course it has to be sustainable. That's why we need an eco park. Everything that is not respecting ecological principles are not sustainable. But to discuss an eco park, we have to understand what is an eco park. So an eco park has 4 pillars. The one pillar is financial viability. The other one is governance. Governance, corporate governance, governmental governance, following the laws. The other one is what we call green nature, carbon reduction, alternative energies. But the 4th one, and we always forget that, and we should not forget that in Africa, is job creation, is human rights, it's entrepreneurship. So the whole social aspect is an important core element of an eco park. In Mozambique, we went this way without any compromise. We have engaged in huge job creation programs. We designed the biggest youth employment program in Mozambique, and we had beautiful findings. And one of the findings is that we, as a special economic zone, can play a central role in developing job creation also outside the park. So we become a hub of economic development. The second one is entrepreneurship. You see, we have to link all our industries with entrepreneurship initiatives, and that's always available. That can start with maintenance, and it can go to education. So the entrepreneurship side and the employment side is a big, important component of an eco park, and the impact that it can create in our case in Mozambique is fantastic. On the green side, which for us it's a huge learning curve in Mozambique. It's probably the biggest industry and the most underestimated industry that comes towards us. You see, if you see Mozambique, you know a little bit of Mozambique. So we're between South Africa and Tanzania on the Indian Ocean. We have 2,500 kilometers of coast. And our main drivers of our economy is the extractive industry and agriculture. So the extractive industry, that's like, in our case, heavy sand. It's maybe ruby, but it's also gas, oil and gas. You see, what our learning is that all these industries are listed in some stock exchange. We take the case of Total. Total, of course, is listed in France, I believe. And these companies under huge pressure from the stock exchange to go to carbon zero. And that's a big opportunity for us. Why? Because we can engage in compensation activities. Eni, for example, that is engaged in Mozambique, the Italian gas company, Eni, they committed to 1 million hectares of biofuel production in Mozambique. 1 million hectares, that creates about 1 million jobs if it's well implemented. We, with our park model, of course, we have to engage in that and have to make sure our parks become the center of excellence for this biofuel development, including technical assistance, smallholder engagement, refineries. So the green revolution that is coming towards our continent in Africa is also carbon compensation, carbon credits. You see, all these big industries in Europe, they need to go to net zero in, let's say, 10 years, in 20 years. And they want to create carbon reduction activity in our geographical area, mangrove restoration. That's not mentioning now the green energy that you so well referred to. So the eco park model, in our understanding, is a must. It has the component of social uplifting, of job creation and entrepreneurship, and it of course has a component of green, of nature, of the green revolution. So in Mozambique, just to give you a little bit of background, we are the national developer of let's call it sustainable economic zones. We call this SEZ, and then we changed the name of special to sustainable, to not change the denomination, but change our vision. And we have currently about $5 billion that invested in our parks. 10,000 people work there. But the Mozambican way, to give you a little bit of gossip, sorry, before I go over to give you the word, to give you a little bit of gossip, the Mozambican way was not easy. We are 20 years old in the special economic zone sphere, and we have not done so well. We have created parks to attract industries, and the industries didn't come. We created parks in remote areas to develop these areas, and nobody went there. But then we discovered, actually, when we build parks around the extractive industries in Mozambique, and the big industry like the cement industries, we can create a huge impact. So we have started this model in the south of Mozambique, where we have an aluminium smelter that we're serving with a supply park. And it worked so well that we doubled the workforce in 2 years. So we attracted investments, and the impact on the workforce side was doubling. Then we had the visit of the governor. Then after that, the minister came. After that, the president. And then the minister called us and said, listen, why don't we scale this whole approach that you're doing, this approach of creating downstream, creating supply, creating agro. Agro is very important for us, and creating green industries. Why don't we scale that on a national level? So that journey has started for us now. So we have now engaged in scaling our business model up to 20 parks in Mozambique, following the same model. And we have created the name, the Mozambican way, to kind of brand that for our own purpose. And what it means that we focus on our industrial development inside. So we don't take these words export as our priority. Our priority is develop markets inside to take advantage of the existing industries we have and supply them with supply industry, with the agro value chain, again, towards supply industry, with the green revolution, and then our speciality is job creation for young people. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Now we'll get our statement from Ghana Free Zones.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to make a few impacts from Ghana. I'd like to take this opportunity to first of all say that we're very excited to be here. The organizers from AZO, we're very grateful that you invited us. And also to our hosts, my brother from the Nigerian side, who also has hosted us fantastically. so far. In our opinion, I think we've had quite a lot of fantastic technical information. My brother who was there on the stage and his diagrams, I've asked one of my assistants to quickly take some of the information so that we can use it in Ghana. So we'll be taking some of your tips to implement, because I think that you are actually on the money. But I'm surprised that we need to even discuss whether we need to go eco or not. We've all agreed that we are going to use technology in whatever we do. When the minister spoke, he spoke about technology, he spoke about many elements that in effect comprises geospatial technology. So if we're looking at machine learning, we're looking at robotics, we're looking at big data, all of this is about the future. And the future has to be green. The future cannot be anything else but has to be involved with carbon footprints. We have to look at that because we know, and in Africa, we are looking at models like India. And I'm particularly always involved and interested in India because I feel that we are going to be the next thing like they are. But look at the pollution. Look at the pollution in India due to industrialization. Are we going to allow our prosperity to rather lead to our ill health? The answer is simple. No way. So if we are going to embark on this fantastic journey of Africa continental free trade, that is trade within ourselves, which in itself is long overdue, we are going to look at trade with the rest of the world, then without even looking at free zones, we should just look at special economic zones and how industry can rescue Africa post-COVID. We all know, and I'm always excited to see Richard from UNCTAD here, the way things are moving forward when it comes to matters like free zones, where there's imminent tax standardization all across the world as a minimum. But after that, are you going to stop producing? Are you going to stop exporting? Are you going to stop using industrial parks? Are you going to stop parking the various vehicles that will be brought into our economy? Because every business is a vehicle, and every vehicle must have a place to park. Whether it's in a garage, Africa is ready to fly, and by that we're looking at planes. Where are the hangars that we're going to park these planes? And we cannot have a hangar that does not have carbon-free sustainability. So we have no choice. And we all know that the most new and innovative thing is carbon credits. We want carbon credits in Africa. We want carbon credits in Ghana. The only way to get the carbon credit is to have eco-friendly industrial parks, not just in Ghana, because we've learned that if Ghana is carbon-free and next door, Togo, Benin, Nigeria is not carbon-free, it will come to you. So we have to do this holistically as an organization that sits and says, okay, Africa, not Nigeria or Ghana or Mozambique, but Africa Economic Zones Organization must come up with solutions that are for Africa, solutions that are for the future, and by dealing with the future, we have no choice than to digitize and to have eco-friendly industrial parks. This is the challenge we all have to address, and we have to do it no matter what. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I know thank you so much. We've run out of time, so I really do apologize that I won't get to address all the questions. But Mr. So, I encourage you to speak to any of the panelists after this. Everyone is approachable. I can confirm that. A great round of applause for everyone on stage because you've shared your experiences and it's been a great experience. Thank you. Okay, thank you all. Yes.
South Africa, but
Be comfortable. Thank you.